On this episode 77 of the podcast, I'm going to talk about bowls, flats, and board games. So let's get into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Luke Who's Talking podcast with me, Luke. Video viewer, look, it's so dark around here, but I probably need like another little, I don't know, something. I need a lot of things. Anyway, let's get into the first little story for you. So the other day I was out in the yard just collecting dog stuff, and I heard this bit of a crash noise. I thought, what's that all about then? So I had a look, and sort of in between, we've got the fence, and then there's a gap. It might be 1.5 meters, and then we've got a shed. And so I started crashing into the shed. So I had a look, and there was a ball footy in between the shed and the fence. And the kid next door was like, "Oh, you're me ball! Oh, yo." I was like, right. So I went and got his ball, gave it back to him. I'm yawning. Oh my! Went and gave the ball back to the kid. Fine, no problem. Well, actually, he was like, "Oh, can you get me ball?" So, whatever. Retrieved his ball, gave it back to him. Fine, no problem. Then I hear this, the thud of boot on ball. Had a look, and the ball's pink, so it's quite easy to see. Anyway, I see this ball sky high, then doof. It lands on the roof of the house next door. So I gave the kid his ball back, and he immediately torped it up in the air, and clang, landed on the garage, like the neighbour's his garage, their garage. And I was like, right. So the kid was like, my ball, it's on the roof. Oh, and I was like, well, it was classic because, it seems that if you hit the ball over the fence or whatever, you retrieve it, and then it immediately goes back over. And that is pretty much exactly what happened. Kid kicked his ball over my fence, gave it back to him, and then he kicks it onto the roof. So, yeah. I don't know if it's still on there, actually. I should go and have a look to see if the ball's still up on the roof or not. I'm not sure where it's at. It could still be on there. I don't know, actually. That'd be interesting to to find out. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to yawn. Let's go to the next story. I've got an itchy nose as well. So for video view, if you're like, look, he's picking his nose. Nah, I'm just trying to give it a good bit of some sort of a scratch. He's itchy. Anyway, yeah, so this, right. So the other week, I was out on the bicycle, and I was riding with a small, how many of us was there? 5? Might have been a dozen of us, including myself. And we're going to go do a ride to the old fish shop. Anyway, so we're herding along the highway, and somebody behind me was like, your tyre's looking a bit dodgy. Anyway, so I pull up, and I'd had a tyre had a cut in it and had a puncture. Anyway, so what should happen, because I have tubeless tyres, right? What you do is in the tyre you put like sealant in there. So if you get a puncture, the liquid, right, should seal it up. However, that didn't happen, and I later on found out why, but that didn't happen at the time. So I'd never had a puncture before, and so I sort of didn't really know what I was doing yet, also knew what to do, because I think if you, like, let's say you read a recipe on how to make a cake, and I say to you, make us a cake, right? You probably sort of know what to do, but because you haven't done it, you don't really know sort of what to do. Anyway, so I inflated my tyre, and it was still leaking. So we found the hole, and I've got like a plug thing now. I've not used a plug before, so I wasn't sure how hard to push it in the tyre and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, so somebody was there, and they sort of like took over right. So I thought, okay. And then we sort of, we got it fixed, and then we rode on a little bit further, and immediately unbeknownst to us at the time, somebody who had stopped, had a puncture as well. So they were changing their tyres, so only half of this sort of got going. Anyway, but my tyre, because it wasn't completely sealed up properly, it was still leaking. So we went to pump it up with somebody's little pump, and I ended up breaking my valve, and it was just a complete disaster. Anyway, so I got back home, fixed my tyre. This is the next day, fixed my tyre properly. The reason why it hadn't sealed is because the tyre was pretty dry. It didn't really have any sealant in it. And after, you got to change it or check it every sort of 4, 5, 6-ish months. So anyway, so I got some more supplies, and I fixed my tyre. Anyway, so the next couple of days, I went and rode again, because usually on Wednesdays I ride with group of people, and somebody there was like, "Oh, so I heard you had a puncture on Sunday, and so said you didn't know how to fix it." Oh, and I was like, "Well, I knew how to fix it, I just hadn't fixed it before, and because I didn't have any, the tyres were dry, that wasn't helping the situation." So I was like, "Okay," and then I think it was the day after that, I saw the person who had told the other person that I didn't know how to fix a tyre, and they then began to explain to me how to repair a tyre. They're like, "Oh, did you get a tyre fixed?" "Yeah, I got it fixed." And then they were explained how to fix a tyre, but it wasn't applicable to my situation, because they were like, "Oh yeah, when you're changing out your tube and whatever, or you do this." So that's great, but I don't have a tube in my tyre because it is tube-less. So yeah, that was an experience. But anyway, the tyre's been fixed. Well, I fixed the tyre and haven't had a problem since. So it doesn't matter. It's fine. But it turned out really interesting. I've sort of been unsure to do anyway. So somebody took over, fixed the problem, and then proceeded to tell people I didn't know how to fix a puncture. Then explained to me how to fix a puncture, but it wasn't applicable really to some of the things I was saying weren't really applicable to my situation of tyre. So I thought that was interesting, to say the least. Anyway, let's get into the last story. We're whipping through these, so we're going quick. Anyway, let's get into the last story. So last week, it'll be last week. When you hear this on Friday, this would have been last Friday. A friend of mine who I've talked about possibly here before on the podcast, or allured. What's the word I'm after? Alluded to them? I'm not sure. Anyway, they had a birthday party. It was they're having a quarter-life crisis. So it's fine. Went to the birthday. Now, at their party, another friend of mine was there who is the Earl, the Squire of board games. I guess that he's the king of gameroony. So we're playing some unusual, some different board games. No, games. Mousetrap was also there, and it turns out Mousetrap is actually a bit of an awful game as well. Yeah, much like the movie Mouse Hunt. But Mousetrap. Couldn't really get it to trap the mices. Anyway, now my friend, he had this detective game. Now how it worked was, everybody, you need, I think it was 6 players, and you have there's a murderer, an accomplice, and then you have everybody else is like detectives, and then you have sort of the game master who's like the pathology sort of, the coroner type person. Anyway, so the murderer, the accomplice, and the detectives everybody has 4 blue cards. So on the blue cards there's like a murder weapon. They have 4 red cards, and there's on the red cards there's like a key evidence. And then they have a card that they have to keep face down, and that either has murderer, accomplice, or I suppose detective or whatever on the other side. Spoilers, I didn't get to see what that actually said. So sort of the game master has everybody close their eyes, and then the murderer and the accomplice reveal themselves to each other, and the murderer points out one of the murder weapons, and they point out one of the pieces of key evidence, and then the game master sort of tries to give hints to everybody as to what the murder weapon and what the key evidence is, sort of without pretty much saying, oh yeah, this is it. And then everybody else has to sort of work as a team, figure it out as to what the key evidence is, what the murder weapon is, and then who the murderer is. Like, the part of the accomplice is a bit, I don't know, pointless maybe. I guess they're there to sort of try and deflect stuff from the murderer. But anyway, it's an interesting game, a bit of fun, and one good thing about it is that I got to use my magnificent storytelling skills to come up with elaborate schemes as to who and how and what the murder weapon was, the key evidence, and how it all came together. Like, I think one of the, I think in one instance, the murder weapon I think I decided upon was like a locked room, and I can't remember what the key evidence was. A ring, I think. And I was like, oh yeah, so the locked room, was an office. And we not that it really mattered, but the game master told us that the murder site was a supermarket. So I was like, oh yeah, so there was a scandal. Somebody was having an affair. They were locked in the manager's office. They were scraping and whatever at the door because they had injuries and to their hands and whatever else. And I was like, oh, and the ring was like, oh, because they're middle-aged and they were married, it was a scandalous affair and whatever else. So I reckon whoever had the locked room and whoever had the ring in their set, they were the the murderer. Comical. So I think everybody got a kick out of that. And then the person who put their theory out there next was like, oh, I mean, I don't know what to say after that. And I was like, well, I mean, tough gig. Anyway, so it was an interesting game, and it was, I can't remember what it was called, but quite possibly a favourite. I don't know, I'm going to throw it out there. Cam, if you're out there listening, the Squire of board games. Wasn't bad, that. Anyway, everybody, let's wrap things up. Well, everybody, that is it for this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. You can give me an email, lukewhostalkingpod@gmail.com, or of course we're on Twitters @L_who's talking. I'm back. I had a week off the other week, of course. I was just sort of like, I felt like I didn't have anything to say. I was out of ideas. Also a little bit with the video, with the vlog as well, or the YouTube video, whatever you want to call it. I'm out of ideas. And that also, may be the case for next week as well. So I don't know, I have to get out and make a video somewhere. Anyway. Anyway, everybody, thanks for listening as always. If you liked it, thumbs up and all that jazz. And I'll catch you all on the next podcast, which will be episode 78. I mean, we're getting sort of close-ish to 100. I mean, it's still probably going to be like a year or something, 2 years. I don't know. It's going to be a while before we get to 100 episodes. But anyway, thanks everybody for listening, and thanks for watching if you watched as well. And I'll catch you later. Bye.